This is a PowerPoint on Whizbang's workshop. Starting with Death Knight. This expansion for Death Knight is relatively simple. Death Knight got multiple hand buff cards that focus on undead specifically. You have cards like Lesser Spinel Spellstone, which benefit you from gaining corpses, or Darkthorn Quilter, which of course is benefited by being hand buff. And then you have the Headless Horseman as the big key legendary of this expansion. This is a big value engine multi-rune card for Rainbow Death Knight, of course. It is incredibly powerful. It gives Death Knight their first hero card. The hero power is super high in value. Discovering an undead every turn, as well as destroying a minion, is quite valuable. All things considered, this is a fairly impactful expansion for Death Knight and new archetypes. Hand buff, we had a few cards in the past, but didn't really have a lot of support for it. And then, of course, Headless Horseman is great for Rainbow Death Knight. Then, Demon Hunter was sort of all over the place for this expansion. You had Death Rattles with, like, Return Policy and your Umpire's Grasp. You had Magtheridon, which synergized with Window Shopper, and, of course, Umpire's Grasp again. Sock Puppet Slither Spear, that was about attack and weapons and being aggressively oriented. Then you had Red Card, which really threw a big mix into this dormant kind of mini archetype for Demon Hunter that I'm actually a big fan of. I think Red Card could be really cool as a dormant archetype for Demon Hunter. This one is a little weird to really place down where Demon Hunter was going for this expansion. I think that Demon Hunter and another class we'll get to in a little bit are really trying to find their legs as a class. They have no identity over the last few years because of just mismanagement of what cards should be printed for these classes from Blizzard. There's no better way to explain it. They've been getting parasitic archetypes rather than archetypes that would last and make meaningful impact on the class and decisions that you should make in the future, like a lot of other classes, which is why I think they're trying to really, push a lot of different things all at once for Demon Hunter. But I don't know. Honestly, this is a pretty okay expansion for Demon Hunter, in my opinion. Then, for Druid, name of the game is Spell Damage Druid. You had Alonius and a lot of other cards that really were pushed and are quite powerful, honestly speaking. The location is very powerful. Then you had Sky Mother Aviana as this fun legendary that offered another kind of niche way to play Druid. It's not very good, but it does give you another option. But the real kicker is Overgrown Beanstalk from the mini set. In Standard, this card is completely useless. There aren't really actually enough Treant cards to make use of this, anything like that, from my knowledge. But in Wild, it is insane. Treant Druid is finally playable. You play it as a sort of Miracle-style deck with sometimes Arcane Giants. Most of the time, you'll have Umbral Owls, and you play a really fast deck. You try and combo and kill your opponent on, like, turn... not kill your opponent, set up a huge board that your opponent can't deal with on turn 3. It's very, very fun. I think this is a pretty good direction for Druid, in my opinion. I like Spell Damage. I think that as a combo-oriented route for Druid is better than just ramp to 20 mana, play Astalors over and over again. I think that's boring. I think that, the Spell Damage support cards that we got are actually quite interesting. But this is a relatively concise expansion for Druid compared to something like Demon Hunter and another class that we'll get to, but it is a little out there, I will admit, but I don't know, I like it. Then for Hunter, you have secrets, you have big beasts, you have whatever mystery egg is, you have like jungle gym, you have plushies, you have so many different like archetypes that they're trying to fill in for Hunter in this expansion. It doesn't make really any sense what they're going for. This is one of my more opinionated slides because I am a Hunter player. I do play primarily Hunter. This is one of my least favorite sets for Hunter, I think, of all time. I'm not interested by almost any of the cards. Yeah, they're quite powerful. Mystery Egg made a new archetype for Hunter with Huron Hunter. Product 9 made, Reno and like Secret Hunter quite powerful, but I'm just not feeling it. I feel like a lot of these cards are just not very interesting. Yeah, they're just like rehashed archetypes that we've had in the past. Of course, Mystery Egg, makes Huron Hunter, but I don't really understand what they were trying to go for with Mystery Egg, because Huron Hunter was most definitely not planned. No one expected it. No one saw it coming. It wasn't really even discovered until, May? Right? So it's not like a sort of archetype that people knew or like playing around at first. I'm just not a big fan of it personally, but It's just all over the place for Hunter in this expansion. It is quite weird. Then you have Mage. This is the one I was really talking about. Blizzard is trying to find the legs for Mage. They don't really know where to go with Mage because all they've done in the last few years is print repeated parasitic archetypes that are only around for one expansion, or they keep printing a lot of random generation that has no actual game plan for Mage, and it's bad. People don't like it. And of course, they're trying to present new ways to play Mage. They brought back No Minion Mage, which is quite good after the buffs and Malfunction being printed. Puzzle Master Khadgar exists. Not too sure what the point of that card is, especially because they made it have terrible AI. But the real winner is Sleet Skater. Sleet Skater is single-handedly bringing back slower Mage playstyles. This card is so powerful. It was slept on incredibly hard in both formats, but especially in Wild. Most people, myself included, thought this was just a really slow card, and it would be for an elemental mage rather than a control mage. But it's just so powerful, especially because of the Giants meta that we're in. You're going to heal effectively 16 health from this by freezing their Giant and healing 8 armor. It is incredibly powerful. This card is unreal. Of course, like I said, Manufacturing Era has brought back Sorcerer's Gambit Mage, single-handedly almost, and it is a very good deck. It's not amazing, it's not a top-tier deck, but it is playable and it is fun. Mage, I think, being pushed in towards this slower play style is much better for the class. Bring back Control Mage, bring back slow Mage decks. We don't need degenerate combo mages, we don't need degenerate random generation mages. We need an actual game plan for Mage, and I think this expansion did push on that pretty well. Then, for Paladin, you had Hand Buff, you had Big Paladin, and you had Auras. Hand Buff is very strong in Standard. It's been nerfed a fair few amount of times. It probably will get nerfed again at some point because for some reason they put Leroy and Deckhand in Standards give you Charge, which of course is really good with Hand Buff. We've known that for years in Wild, that Charge is very powerful. And then Pipsy Paint Hoof hasn't really taken off anywhere. Big Paladin doesn't really work in Wild, and it has no support whatsoever in Standard after the rotation. I mean, yeah, you have Kangor, but you don't have any good big minions to cheat out, so it's completely useless. Then you have, Crafter's Aura, you have, Papercraft Golem, I think it's called, or Paper Mache Golem, things like that, where this Aura synergy, I'm actually really interested in where Blizzard can take the Aura cards, what direction they can go. They're really cool. I think that, yeah, Crafter's Aura is weak, but it's still an interesting enough card. It's a lot more interesting than a lot of other cards in this expansion, in my opinion. This is still just a little recap. I'm not too much into the balance for a lot of these, but I think it's fun and interesting to talk about what cards did come out for a lot of people that may not have been paying that much attention or don't know what's happening in Hearthstone right now. Then you have Priest with Time Winder's Remy and Rosary Sealed. I'm saying these two specifically because this is what Priest is all about. Dragons and hero powers. Every card this expansion helped in this in some way. Yeah, you had a few filler cards, but they're not really that impactful. You had the 3/3 that gave you bandages. I don't even remember what that card is called. You had Puppet Theater, but that Puppet Theater is very good in Reno decks where Raza goes. Zarimi was incredibly powerful in both formats on release, and then it got nerfed because obviously, come on, why did they print it in the state that they put it in? Everyone knew it was going to be broken, and then it suddenly was broken, shocking no one. But Raza Resealed is really doing a lot of work in Wild. It has single-handedly made Reno Priest an actually playable deck again. Yeah, you could play Reno Priest in the past, and it wasn't bad, but Raza Resealed has put it to a next level. Now that you don't need Anduin, or Shadow Reaper Anduin, the 8-mana card, to make your hero power refresh, Raza does that for 5 mana and gives you a body. It's great. You can now only have your Reno Lone Ranger or just your base Shadow Form hero power, which is great. This archetype is very concise for Priest, and I like the direction where you're going, where you give classes concise archetypes. You don't give them bullshit cards that they don't need or use that are just pack filler, and this is a good expansion for Priest. Rogue? Ooh, boy. Although Twisted Pack is incredibly powerful, I think this expansion definitely goes to Toy Boat. Bringing back Garrote Rogue, making Pirate Rogue very powerful. Toy Boat is a key card in Rogue right now. Twisted Pack, of course, makes it so you can play your Wild-Upon Knolls and your Obsidian Shards for 0 mana. It's very powerful and gives you a high roll aspect to Miracle Rogue that it didn't really have before. However, it does still perform a little bit worse if you do miss, if you do not get your Twisted Packs and you have your Knolls and your obsidian shards in your hand, you're actually really in a bad position. So regular Miracle Rogue is still playable. Of course, it's amazing because obviously if you can get 2 8/8s out on turn 3, you're probably going to win the game. And then you have Sonya Water Dancer as a card that I want to highlight as a new combo engine for Rogue. It's seeing play in Standard because of the fact that it synergizes so well with Valera's Gift. But in Wild, this card probably will do something crazy. It's like how Spirit of the Shark was pretty okay, but once Scabs came out, it really took off in what the card could do, allowing you to have so many different combos. You had Pillager, which was great. Of course, got nerfed. Now you have Alex, which is the best way to use it. Or you have Hook Tusk, which can combo off that way. It's pretty cool. I think Sonya will probably be useful in the future, but right now it doesn't really have much use. That being said, this is a set of all time for Rogue. Then, Shaman didn't really have a direction the cards were going this expansion. It's kind of just a bunch of good cards. Shutterblock is quite powerful in a Shutterwalk Shaman, of course. You can triple the battle cry of like Lotheb or Boom Pistol Bully or I don't even know anything, right? Your Framestir, your Astalor, your a bunch of different things, right? To get more Astalors, to get more value from your deck. But the real kicker is Fairy Tale Forest. This card is ubiquitous in almost every Shaman deck that can run it. It draws you a card, which Shaman doesn't have great card draw. It mana cheats. Shaman doesn't have that great of mana cheat. And guess what? It's so specific as a tutor because of the battle cries only that you can run it in Big Shaman to tutor out your Muckmorpher, which will make it cost 1 less. You can play it on turn 4 to cheat out your big minions that early because of Muckmorpher. Then Pop-Up Book is great for your spell damage Druid, your spell focused Shaman, like your Frog Shaman, your just Burn Shaman in general, Nature Shaman as it's called in Standard. It's very impactful. Like I'm saying, this is more just a good cards expansion for Shaman. There's nothing really to highlight about archetypes here because they didn't really get much that's archetypal specific when you actually look. They had like 2 elementals, but it wasn't really focused around elementals. It's just these cards are elementals. Yeah, honestly, pretty cool expansion for Shaman. Then for Warlock, you have the big one, Wheel of Death. This created a whole new archetype for Warlock, Wheel of Death Warlock, of course, where you can make use of cards that work well on having low cards in your deck. Of course, Fanatum, Lord of the Opera, or your Bloodback Bristle, I think it's called. I don't know what it's called. It's the 3-mana 3/3, deal 6 if you have 15 or less cards in your deck, or 10 or less cards in your deck, lifesteal, whatever. And then that deck was quite good before it was nerfed. They changed the Wheel of Death to be start of turn rather than end of turn, which no one had anticipated that would work with Drukhari Enchanter, and even people who did probably didn't anticipate how powerful it would be. So, of course, it was nerfed. Then you have Game Master Nemsy and other big demon Warlock cards that are trying to, cheat out big demons, an archetype we've had in the past, Q-Block. Q-Block, basically. It's a beloved archetype. This big demon Warlock hasn't been good for a long time, still isn't very good, but you can play it. And then the real kicker is Table Flip. This card is huge for hand lock, for even lock, for so many different decks. You can play this in a lot of combo Warlocks can run this card because they draw so many cards anyway. It'll probably cost 3-4 mana to deal 3. It's a quite powerful card. This is a very good expansion for Warlock, in my opinion. It pushes a lot of archetypes and gives Warlock a new archetype in Wheel of Death. It's very interesting, and I like this one a lot for Warlock, like I'm saying, as it didn't really do much degenerate things. Yes, Mass Production came out, and Mass Production is very good in a Dark Glare questline Warlock, but I don't actually think that Mass Production was necessary for that deck. I think that deck was hidden in the sands, that people were sleeping on it, and it would have been good even without Mass Production. Not amazing, because the deck also currently isn't amazing even with Mass Production, but it would have been a solid tier 3 deck, better than the Fatigue questline Warlock deck that we had in the past. But that being said, this is a pretty good expansion for Warlock, in my opinion. Then for Warrior, it's all about mechs. Almost every card in this expansion is a mech or a mech synergy card. There's very few that aren't. And of course, Inventor Boom, the big one, it resummons your big mechs, such as Ziliax, this big proponent of supporting the Ziliax, which makes a lot of sense for Dr. Boom. Of course, he's going to work with Ziliax, he's going to work with big mechs. And then you have Quality Assurance, actually, which is a pretty necessary card for Taunt Warrior. Taunt Warrior wasn't very good last expansion in Showdown in the Badlands in either format, so this gives, some necessary draw that the archetype didn't really have before. It's tutor draw, so you can make use of it in, specific control decks. And then you have Chemical Spill. Chemical Spill is incredibly interesting because it lets you cheat out key combo pieces that are incredibly expensive, like your Thaddeus, like your Mechathune, and just any big minion you want to cheat out anyway. Of course, Chemical Spill has created new archetypes for Warrior as well, in, your Mechathune Warrior that couldn't really play before, but now they have Chemical Spill. You can cheat it out as you cycle through your deck using your Menagerie-style draw decks and your Skipper decks to gain armor, all these things, and it's quite powerful. Let me rephrase. It's quite polarizing, I should have said. It's not that great into a lot of things, but if you're playing against Reno Paladin, which is a very powerful deck, you win the game almost guaranteed, because what are they ever going to do against your Mechathune? They can't really do much. It's honestly very interesting. I'm not too big of a fan for this expansion for Warrior, in my opinion. I don't like Inventor Boom very much. Chemical Spill is kind of interesting. There's nothing to really use it for, and then Quality Assurance is just 2-mana draw too. It's nothing flashy, but this is definitely a powerful expansion for Warrior, as you have cards like Safety Goggles that I didn't really put on here, which provides you a 0, and Part Scrapper, which provides you a pretty good way to cheat out mechs that we can't really make that much use of yet because there aren't good enough mechs to cheat out, but it is something we have to look out for in the future. Then for neutral, of course, you have Ziliax Deluxe 3000, easily one of the strongest cards ever printed, arguably one of, if not the best card ever printed. This card's already been nerfed 3 times. It's still incredibly powerful. It'll get nerfed again and again, probably 3 or 4 more times before it's bad in quotes, but it's definitely going to be going down in history as one of the best cards ever printed. It's so powerful, provides so much. It lets you do almost anything. And then you have Treasure Distributor. This card, don't know why they buffed it. The card itself was weak in Wild, yes, but not very good, and it would have been fine in Standard if there were pirates. There weren't any pirates in Standard, so they decided, okay, let's buff Treasure Distributor. It's still bad because there are no pirates, but then it's terrorizing Wild because there are pirates in Wild. This is easily arguable to be one of the best 1-drops ever printed. It's changing the game in the 1-drop meta of what you can do on turn 1 to make disgusting boards, because you'll just play Treasure Distributor, have a pretty decent high roll of a Brigand, and then, of course, Patches. You'll just get a 1-mana 3-2, and then a 0-mana 3-2, and then a 0-mana 2-1 on turn 1, and your opponent is just like, what the fuck do I do against that? And there's not much to do. Then, of course, you have him, Sing Along Buddy. This card is game-changing for Even decks. It gives a lot of Even decks new game plans, like even Druid is now finally playable because of Sing Along Buddy specifically. You can make use of gaining a lot of attack to OTK your opponent, which is the best way to play the deck. Playing it as a pure aggro deck doesn't really work, because you're just worse than every other aggro deck, but playing it as a kind of tempo combo deck, great. It is a huge boon to things like a Hero Power Mage. Reno Priest can run it. Even Hunter likes it. Questline Hunter likes it. Any deck that wants to be using their hero power is very fond of Sing Along Buddy. And, of course, it's my favorite card ever printed. I love this guy. So, yeah, I think this is a pretty interesting neutral set, but I'm not a big fan of it overall. Yeah, I like Sing Along Buddy, but a lot of the cards are either really boring or they're really broken. And I'm not a big fan of this. I think this might be my second least favorite neutral set, right behind Showdown in the Badlands, for pretty similar reasons. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think down below. Did I miss anything about the kind of like cards being pushed and ideas of the cards this expansion? Do you also agree that you don't like a lot of things, or you do like a lot of things being pushed this expansion? This is a new format of video where I'm just going to go through expansions, do a little bit of a recap about what they brought to the table and things like that. And yeah, that's going to be it for me. I guess I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Shadows are rising again!
Darker than they've ever been.